Hey folks, in this episode of the podcast, I get to sit down with Mr. Colin Smith. We're going to be talking about the new generative AI feature in Photoshop. This is Twip. Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Photo. I am your host, Frederick Van Johnson. Today, longtime friend of mine and the guy behind PhotoshopCafe, I'm sure you've heard of it, is here to give us the inside scoop on this brand new Photoshop feature called Generative AI. And you may have heard of AI from other companies in the industry. It's been kind of the buzzword for 2023 with DALL-E and Midjourney and Leonardo.ai. And of course, Adobe entered the race with their Firefly, or Adobe Firefly, which is a generative AI tool standalone. Well, now it looks like they took that magic and put it inside Photoshop. So I want to talk about that, what the ramifications are, what's the good, the bad, the ugly, all of that of this whole space. Colin Smith is uniquely positioned to talk about this stuff. Not only has he had his hands on the beta since the beginning, so he's been playing with this thing for a while, but he's an educator. He knows how to talk the talk and tell people in simple, easy to digest terms these complex subjects like artificial intelligence. So Colin Smith, welcome to the show, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I am doing great. Thanks for doing this. I literally contacted you at the last minute to come in and do this recording. And like a good friend, you said, okay, sure, and popped in. So thank you. Thank you for popping in. I appreciate it. This is good.
Thanks for having me. You managed to at least you let me finish my lunch before we jumped on here. That was nice.
I make allowances for my friends. I'm not that.
So obviously, I'm really well prepared for this.
Yeah, no, I mean you do this stuff in your sleep, so I'm not worried about that. So let's start the conversation. First of all, for the folks that may not be familiar with Colin Smith, or PhotoshopCafe, as it were, give us the introductory elevator pitch about you and your company.
Well, that's a long elevator.
It's a tall building, man. It's a tall building.
I guess probably one of the longest running websites on Photoshop now. I started PhotoshopCafe in the year 2000.
Wow.
And then, I've just been teaching and training Photoshop. I've written 21 books, taken a couple of diversions. We did some stuff in Flash and drones and other topics as well, but mainly really focusing on Photoshop and photography, digital art. And that's basically, it's been going a long time.
And you're selling courses, right? The main thrust of the company is you're giving away a ton of free content, but then you're also, if you want to dive in deep and really get to know these tools, you make that happen as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, kind of YouTube is the thing. So I'm on YouTube and, we're just past some 30-something million views. But, PhotoshopCafe itself is kind of interesting. I was just looking at the stats today for some weird reason, and we just passed 40 million unique visitors. No, 60 million. 60 million unique visitors. Now, that's not views or hits. That's 60 million actual unique, people.
Humans that are coming in there. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it's kind of fun. So, a lot of people apparently are interested in Photoshop.
And, which is a good segue into today's chat, because I have a feeling that a lot more people are going to become more interested in Photoshop. People that are existing users are going to find new uses or new ways to do things. And people that have not even been exposed to Photoshop may come into the fold now, which I'm sure Adobe will be happy to see, but will come in now because of all the power that you have to do stuff that wasn't literally, not possible, let's call it, before this feature was released, at least not possible with a couple of clicks in a couple of minutes. If you were a Colin Smith or an Aaron Nace or somebody like that, sure, you could go in and use your superpowers in Photoshop to do almost anything. But now that bar is lowered a little bit. There's still a lot of stuff that requires heavy lifting, but a lot of it doesn't anymore. What are your initial impressions about this new feature in Photoshop called Generative AI? Are you excited about it? Are you worried? Like, how do you feel as a creative?
Personally, I'm pretty excited about it. But I'm also in a balanced kind of a way. We'll talk about that in a second. But it's amazing what you can do now. I was talking to a friend and they said, "Oh man, this is the biggest feature Photoshop's had in a long time." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? This is the biggest feature Photoshop's ever had."
Yeah.
It's never
Yeah.
had anything like this before. Um, and it's really amazing. So there's a couple of sides to it. Like one of the things, I'm as an artist, a photographer, I'm excited about it because what it can do is it can save me a lot of time. If I have a vision in my mind and I'm trying to go somewhere with it, I'm not spending forever extending edges on photos and cloning, and it can get rid of a
Yeah.
lot of the repetitive work. Of course, it has limitations, and that's one of the things. The first time I ever saw generative AI was Midjourney.
Yeah. Same
And the
here.
first time I saw it, I didn't know what to think. The first time I saw it, I almost had a panic attack.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh man, this is it. I'm done. Artists are done. They're replaced. And that's a lot of people's initial reaction that are existing or established artists. But then once I started, it's like anything. Once I started digging into it a little bit, and then I started to see a lot of limitations. I started to really kind of understand what it can do, what it can't do. It's like, when you're the kid and then you read the back of the comic book and then you see the x-ray specs and you're like, oh man, I'm going to have these x-ray specs and, I'm going to be able to see through everything like Superman. And then you actually get them and then it's like, oh, actually a good example of that, I've got it, oh, it's behind my poster there, was Google Glass. I had in my
Yeah.
mind what Google Glass was going to be, and what it is two different things. Same thing with generative art. Like what you're seeing is we're showing you what it can do, but we're not showing you what it can't do. So it's not replacing an artist. Right now, we're just getting these new features and everything highlighted, and it's amazing what it can do. But it's not making us obsolete. It still needs a person to operate it. It still needs a creative person to understand the composition, to be able to give it the right prompts. Um, you know, it so I see it as a tool. Now that I'm kind of got used to it and been playing around with it and understand it a lot better, it's a tool, and it's a great tool that's going to make me more productive. It's going to save me a lot of time, particularly digging through stock photos, like spending hours trying to find the right stock photo when I just want to put a bird or something in there really quick.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
do that now. And it has a lot of other things, like the main things that are kind of being highlighted with this right now is in cropping, out cropping, and
Mm-hmm.
generating stuff. So, in cropping is, when you're replacing areas inside a photograph, right? So maybe you've got something like tourists and you want to get rid of the tourists, you can do that very quickly in a way that content aware fill couldn't do. Now, it doesn't always get it right. Sometimes it takes a few attempts, and sometimes it takes a combination of traditional tools. Outcropping is when you've got a photograph, and we've all got these photos, pretty much all my collection. I get excited, I look at the scene and I realize I'm crooked, or I cut half of a tree off or something.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one, you can drag it out now and it will generate that tree and it will look like it was part of the photograph. So that's the other side. And then the third side is when it's actually generating things. So I'm in a photograph and I want to add something that was never there before. You can make a selection and you can add that. And most of the time it will be perfect one day. Right now it's surprisingly good. Like it's hitting it a
Mm-hmm.
lot more times than I'm expecting. And, sometimes I'm just shocked, like my jaw drops with the results
Yeah.
sometimes. So it's an amazing piece of technology. And I think people just need to understand that where we're at right now in the cycle, like if anyone's been playing around with Mid-Journey, because say, for example, I do a face in Photoshop right now in the generator, it doesn't do faces very well. But in November, December of last year, Midjourney didn't do faces very well either.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
what we're in May, and it's doing, faces perfectly. The joke used to be the AI, would have like 10 fingers on each hand. But
Yeah.
now it's generating, I'm doing generations, of guitars, and I actually have 6 strings on them now and stuff. And it's like, wow,
Yeah.
it's progressing very, very quickly. So, if people like say, oh, I tried to create a dragon inside of Photoshop, using Firefly, and it's like, oh, the dragon wasn't very realistic. It's like, no, but give it 6 months and it will be.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
I wouldn't be thinking about those kind of limitations. I would be thinking more about like, the workflow limitations, and the workflow limitations are things like, because I'm seeing two sides, right? And I mean, I'm kind of coming out of a fire hose here a little bit, but I'm seeing two responses, right? So I'm getting most of the response. People are very excited about this. They're really happy about it. They're like, woohoo! And then there's some other people that are apprehensive, maybe even a little afraid. And that's a real concern,
Yeah.
to say that this is not going to affect people, where it's going to replace jobs. It is. It is.
Yeah.
It's not going to
100%.
make all photographers. It's not going to make all retouchers redundant. It's not going to get rid of it. But what it is going to do is it is going to minimize some positions. It's going to take over some positions. But at the same time, just like any generation of technology from the wheel to the machine, it's also going to create new jobs and new positions that didn't exist before. So, we're going to have a, prompt artist or prompt technician, whatever they call them. It's going to become an entire career, people being able to write descriptive prompts to generate. That's a skill in itself. And as the AI progresses and becomes more intelligent, there's going to be so many more variables that you can put in there, and that's going to become a skill in itself. And one
Yeah.
of the examples I like to give people, who are afraid, because to me it's really important to not just bulldoze over people who are afraid and say, you're a Luddite, and if people don't know Luddite, I got a great story on that. But
Yeah.
we can't just bulldoze over people, who have spent 30, 40 years learning a craft and now suddenly feel helpless. I think it's very, very important that we're empathetic, and also to understand that those skills that those people have learned, those skills are not wasted. Those skills are still essential. And essentially, what's happening is the AI is not replacing your skill. The AI is supplementing your skill. You're still, the more skilled you are, you're still going to come up with better results. And just think of it as, we're using stock photography. We used to be clip art, right? We're using plugins. We're using filters. We're using all kinds of things to help us. We've got a camera, you've got filters. So just think of it as another tool that's in your toolbox. Right now, it's very big and loud and everything is AI, because that's what the spotlight is focusing on, because it's new. But in time, it's just going to become another tool in your toolbox.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, the negative backlash that this kind of technology has gotten, right? It's like, oh, like you're saying, oh, it's going to take these jobs away, it's going to do this, and a lot of that is valid. It is going to be disruptive. It is by definition, artificial intelligence is by definition a disruptive technology that's going to change things for the better, and maybe not so good in other areas like deep fakes and just us being able to trust the news and things like that. But that my argument back to that is, we're already there. Photoshop's been around,
Exactly.
for many people's entire lifetimes. Because you're shortening the path from A to B, now it's an issue, right? I mean, you've been teaching people how to do everything that Midjourney and Firefly and all these other tools. You've been teaching that for years. Now it's just a little bit easier in certain areas. So, is it going to replace jobs? I don't know. I mean, I think like some AI in some directions, like ChatGPT, right? You played with ChatGPT, right?
Oh, yeah. I use it all the time now.
Me too. I use it. Yeah, I'm going to use it on this video to write the description, right? And it's those kinds of tools, I think, have a much more direct line to job removal, as it were, than some of the other tools, because copywriters or, I mean, people that write articles for a living on a certain thing, when they plugged ChatGPT into the web, then all bets were off, because now I can literally tell it to go look at YouTube and give me the top 10 videos on this subject and summarize them, or point them at this video and say, summarize this video and give me 20 SEO friendly keywords. Boom, I got it. I would have to hire somebody to do that before, because I don't have time to do it. Now I can do it,
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, no, this is crazy and exciting. And one of the things, I'm curious what you think about this before we jump into the demo. I was talking to someone, I forget who it was. I was talking to someone about what the future of Photoshop or Photoshop like programs, image editing programs, is going to be. Considering what the vector that we're looking at now, we're seeing all this AI and machine learning and this and that, and machines are getting faster and faster, and all this stuff is happening. So I wonder if, and I'm sure Adobe has thought about this every direction possibly imaginable, but I wonder from my consumer perspective if the days of a Photoshop as we know it aren't limited. Like, would Adobe, I know you can't speculate on this, but is there a day when companies like Adobe will come out with something where, instead of me understanding the tool palette and grabbing the mouse and drawing a marquee and making a selection and doing all this, where I could just say, okay, I'm going to sit back with a microphone and talk to my image. Okay, make the hair a little fuller. Okay, put some clouds in the sky. Okay, make the skin a little clearer, remove that mole, or move that mole to the left side. Make her smile just a little bit, and I'm done. Or I could go in and fine tune with a mouse if I need to, or a trackpad. But do you feel like that is a vector that we're heading in, or does that make it too easy? I don't know.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what my feelings are. I mean, I'll definitely give my thoughts, but my feelings are not going to change progress. Because I believe we're moving into another time. This is a paradigm shift for humanity, another one. We've gone from, the Stone Age to the Iron Age to the Machine Age to the Atomic Age to the Information Age, and now we're entering into the AI age. And it's a paradigm of humanity, that is, you're not going to stop it. So, so how you feel about it, unfortunately, is irrelevant. You have to adapt. If you want to work, you have to adapt to the new tools and use them. So it doesn't matter is this a tool I enjoy using or I don't enjoy using it. It doesn't matter. Give me back, Photoshop 3. I loved Photoshop 3. It was great.
Yeah, layers. That's where layers showed up.
But I think I don't see like Photoshop as a tool going. I definitely do see more and more tools coming out. And Photoshop has kind of become the Swiss Army knife that does, pretty much everything, right? So you're still gonna, what you're saying, yeah, I definitely do see a time, where you move into more of an art director's position rather than a technician, because that's really what it's doing. It's replacing the technician, right, with the director.
Correct.
But there's always a time when you've got that artisan wants to go in and use those tools. Because here's the thing, I can tell, Mid-Journey or, a Photoshop beta right now, hey, give me a sky, give me a different set of clothing. And it is like being an art director. It comes up with some really interesting ideas. Sometimes they're not so good, and sometimes they're amazing. Like sometimes it comes up with something better than what I was imagining. But the thing is, it's not coming up with what I imagine. It's coming up with what it imagines. It's saying, here's my ideas based on what I think you want. And so there's times when, an artist has to take out the paintbrush and paint something themselves. So, it's creating a layer between us and our art. And I think Photoshop's always going to be there because people are always going to want to touch that art. Whether it's to get a specific result for a brand, a particular thing, or whether it's a hobbyist and someone actually enjoys working in Photoshop and retouching photographs and just doing it for the pure therapeutic pleasure of doing it. 25 years ago, I was creating photorealistic illustrations. I don't know if you remember that. And I just spent ridiculous
Hmm.
amounts of time creating things from scratch in Photoshop that looked very realistic. And, I got a lot of attention out of that. But people said to me, why didn't literally, I was featured in a photography magazine, and they said, why Colin Smith doesn't need a camera. I mean, it was very flattering of them. But, but people said, well, why don't you just take a photo? Why don't you just use 3D? And it was like, I enjoy the
It's the
process,
process. Yeah. Yeah.
you
Hmm.
know? And so people that get all distressed and say, I don't want to learn art anymore, I don't see the point. Well, I mean, why are you doing art? If you're doing it for a living, it's one thing, but let's separate that. If you're doing it for a hobby, what do you care what tools are out there if you are getting the pleasure of creating that image that particular way? Then keep doing that. If that's
Yeah.
what gives you joy, if that's what makes you happy, that shouldn't affect it.
Yeah.
It's like, like digital, and this, I'm just like, the other side, where we get the criticism, I do want to bring this up. It's like, oh, here we go again. um you and I have been down this road before. When art, like for working, like say production art on TV shows, movies, or whatever, went from print, drawing boards to digital.
Yeah.
When photography went from film to digital, when drones came out, all these paradigms, all these new things, and it's here we go again. And now that the AIs, I'm hearing the same thing again, where they're hyping up the dangers. They're hyping up, the downfalls of it and the
Hmm.
pitfalls, and downplaying the advantages, right? Because it's
Yeah.
sensational, it gets attention, it gets clicks, it gets views. And, they're talking about like, well, Photoshop can now be used as deep fakes and, to fake
Hmm.
reality or whatever. And it's like you said earlier on, it always has. Have you ever
Hmm.
used Photoshop? And some of these news reports are actually more fake than some of the things they're afraid of, you
Yeah.
know. And I
Yeah.
knew this, when because we went through this with cameras, like digital photography is not real photography, and all the same stuff. And then drones, same thing. Drones are gonna like kill people, and we're not talking about military drones. We're talking
Yeah.
about little plastic drones. And
Yeah.
I remember seeing an article once in Washington. It was in Washington. It said space drone strike on Space Needle. And I'm like, what? What happened? And it was apparently someone, a little plastic phantom drone flew by the window and someone saw it. And somehow that became the headline. And I was like, this
Yeah.
is ridiculous. And I was telling a friend of mine, I said, this is ridiculous. Let me show you this ridiculous headline. And I looked it up, and they changed the headline. And I
Yeah.
say, oh, okay, they saw the sense when they realized the police weren't pressing charges. The headline now was Space Needle still standing after drone strike.
Oh,
I
jeez.
mean, so I just feel like here we go again.
Jeez. Yeah.
What happens is they're playing to the uneducated public. So the people that know anything about this technology or understand anything about this technology, it's really cringy when they start playing, to the uneducated people that don't know anything about it. They're overstating things and saying things that, just are not even possible or just not even plausible. I mean, yes, as far as with the AI, yes, there is definitely some plausible things, for bad actors and stuff like that. Absolutely.
Sure.
But then
Yeah.
there's things, like the Adobe content authenticity initiative. So they're partnered with a lot of big companies, Canon, Nikon, Nvidia. All these big companies are all part. There's hundreds of companies in this content authentication initiative, where when we're generating, and everything is created inside of Photoshop that has AI is being tagged as an AI image. And it's also working. I was talking to some people at Wacom, and even if you go on the Wacom site and you search around, they're actually working on some of the hardware are tagging it too. So the cameras are tagging. So everything is being tagged. So it's, you're not going to be able to pass it off as a real thing, because they are addressing that. Like people are throwing their hands up saying they're not doing anything. They're actually doing a lot, and they've been working on it for a long time. I know Adobe have been working on this publicly they've been talking about it for at least 5 years.
Oh,
Um,
more.
or
Yeah.
more, yeah, or
Yeah.
more even, yeah. So there are things in place, but nobody talks about that because it's not sensational,
It's not sensational. It's not a drone strike on the Space Needle, right? It's got to be sensational. One of the things though that comes up, I think, at least I know because I like you do talks at different conferences from time to time, so you can see sort of the ebb and flow of what's the hot new thing, right? And if you peel back the onion for a couple of years, it was what was it, a couple of years, Meta or crypto, then NFT, then Meta with the metaverse, and then now I think the new acronym that people are grappling with is AI, right? It's like, okay, another acronym that's not going to be relevant in the next year or the year after. Should I really pay attention to it? Is it going to go the way of these other technologies, which you and I know is a huge miscalculation, right? Because this AI stuff is a sea change on a number of industries versus it's being niche and being kind of a playground for nerds on Discord or something. This is going to touch a lot, different flavors of AI are going to touch all of our lives in some way or another, if it hasn't already, which it probably has. So yeah, I'm bullish on the whole thing, as you know. I mean, I love imaging. I used to say back in the day that pixels were born to be punished, and now, and, and now we could just punish them with more creativity, with assistance from AI. So it's all good.
Right.
It's all good. So let's do a demo, man. Let's dive in, and
right.
I know people that are watching this and listening want to get a feel for what this new technology that Adobe just released or is going to release soon. It's still in beta, right? So
yeah, it's a public beta, so anybody can access it. And in fact, I'll show you how to get it as soon as I jump on the. Well, actually, no, I won't because my Creative Cloud icon's not up.
Okay.
But I'll tell you how to get it.
Okay.
So all you've got to do is just go to your Creative Cloud account, which normally is up here on mine. I guess I don't know where it went, but and you just go in there and you'll see. Betas on the left hand side. You can just click on it and you'll see different betas that are available to the public, and then you can just join the program. Make sure that you run an update to make sure you've got the latest update of Creative Cloud. It doesn't always show that until you refresh it, and then you'll see a little download, and you can download the Photoshop beta, which you can see here. It says Photoshop beta. And then what that does is it runs alongside. So I have the regular Photoshop. You don't have to uninstall your regular Photoshop. You can run this, and then when you launch it and you type in Photoshop, let me type in Photoshop. And oh, look at that. My spotlight worked. And there's my Photoshop there. Make sure you run the beta, and this will have the application. So I can still run them. In fact, both of them will work at the same time. So I really want to emphasize that because
that's good.
I've heard people say, "Oh, it made my Photoshop stop working." No, it won't make your Photoshop stop working.
Is there a certain level? Is there a certain level of Creative Cloud subscription that you have to have purchased in order to get access to the beta? Like if you're on the photography bundle, can you get the beta, or do you have to be on a more all-encompassing bundle?
That's a good question. I believe as long as you're a valid subscriber, so you have some kind of a subscription, you can access it.
Okay.
If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. I mean, I haven't heard from anybody that said, "Hey, I have the photography program and I can't access it." So I haven't personally heard that. So
Okay.
I would say, yeah. So you have to have a valid subscription. And there's another thing that worth mentioning, another thing that people trip over is and this beta is only for people 18 years old and over. So if you go in there and the bar is grayed out, that means you haven't verified your age. So you can go on to Adobe or even just go to Behance and just put your age in, and then you'll be able to access it. So if it's grayed out, that's probably why. And if you can't access it, and you're happen to have a pirated version of Photoshop, well, you're not going to have access to this. So you have to have a current valid subscription. And if you're on CS6, no, it's not going to work either.
Yeah. Good.
All right. So anyway, are you seeing the screen here?
Yes, I do see it. I see a panorama of looks like Colorado or something.
Well, close. This was actually in Hawaii. This is Waimea Valley, the start of Waimea Valley in Kauai. I went there during the pandemic.
Nice.
And so this is a panorama, right? So I don't know how many shots it was. It was an aerial panorama. Maybe it's something like probably, I'm going to guess, maybe 50 or 60 images to create this panorama. So and obviously I've downscaled it for this. So one of the things about a panorama is, it's really wide and you don't know what's above and what's beneath. So if you wanted to expand this in the past, this would have been quite difficult. So I'm going to show you, this is one of the things you can do. I'm going to grab the crop tool and I'm going to drag up. If I hold down the Alt or the Option key, I can drag up and down at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh, interesting. I'm using the custom background. That's fine. All right. So what I've done is I've expanded the canvas. And now what we want to do is we want to generate some pixels in the top and the bottom. So let me do this. I'm just going to have a little bit of overlap. And I'm just going to inverse this. This is Command-Shift-I, inverses. All right, so what we've done is we've selected the area above and beneath. If you want this to work, you've got to have a selection. So you'll see this toolbar pops up here, and that toolbar says Generative Fill. So I'm going to click on it. Now, we'll do some text prompts in a minute, but right now, if you just want to fill, all you need to do is just choose Generate. And you'll see this bars going across the bottom. And now this doesn't have anything to do with your computer performance. What's happening is this is putting this up online, and it's probably being slowed down a bit too because and look, boom, look at that. Isn't that amazing?
Wow, that's ridiculous.
And we're streaming right now as well. So right, so your bandwidth actually affects it more than your computer performance because it's going to a a sea of computers. A cloud, there's no such thing as a cloud. Well, there's data centers. and,
Yeah,
and what it
yeah.
does is it goes to the data center because it's using, basically a render farm to do actually a GPU farm. Most of this happens on GPU. But anyway, so what happens is that when it generates in the info panel, the properties panel, we get 3 variations, just like we do on a lot of the AI generators. Now, if I don't like this, I can choose the second option, or I could look at the third option. And so I can choose these. If I don't like those, I could choose generate again. But now here's where it gets interesting is if I want to prompt this, I'm going to say, let's regenerate the top. I'm going to click on generative fill, but this time rather than just expanding my image, which is what it did here, let's say dark cloudy day, and we hit generate. And now it's processing again. And now, so based on this text, it's saying, okay, what do clouds look like? And it's figuring out what clouds look like, and it's figuring out how to draw these clouds and blend them into the existing image.
Oh
And then we
wow!
get
Look at that!
this.
Look at that!
Or we choose the second option. That's more like what I was thinking, or the third option.
Yeah.
This. And so what's happening is here, one of the things we're mentioning, so this is trained, the AI is trained on images. One of the things people are concerned about is copyrights. So what Adobe is doing is it's training these on the images exclusively from Adobe stock. There's 20 million images in there. Now, I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're going to actually pay the contributors a piece, so they actually need to get compensated. Now, one of the things that people misunderstand about this is they're like, oh, it's using Adobe stock. So they think what it's doing is it's looking at all the photos in Adobe stock and looking at ones of the clouds and say, oh, there's one, and then it's cutting out the cloud and then it's pasting it in here and blending it in. No, it's generating an entirely new image. This cloud does not exist in any photograph. It's never existed before. But what it's doing is it's everything it's learned about clouds is using to generate this cloud. And it knows the sky's here. But AI is not new in Photoshop. We've had things like sky replacement. We've had the neural filters. We've had select subject. So all of these different things are part of what they call Adobe Sensei. And that's Adobe's artificial intelligence. Adobe's been using it for 10 years, and it's been trained and it's learned, and it already started learning what images were. It knew what a sky was, or a dog, or a person. When you would do the select subject, and it knows it's a person or a cat or whatever, because it's looked at millions and millions of images and it's learned. So that's one of the things that people don't understand. Machine learning is not taking a piece of a photograph and pasting it in.
And
It's
that's the
literally,
reaction though, right? That is the knee jerk reaction that, I know what it's doing. It's going into Adobe stock and finding a photo with dark clouds and masking it and doing some crazy magic and putting it in there. I think that's a key point because it's not doing that, right? It
yeah,
actually has learned how to draw clouds and is
yeah,
drawing clouds for you.
exactly. And I understand why we think that way because that's how we've been trained to think. That's how we understand it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We understand a sky replacement is you need a photo of a sky. But let me
So
show
that's a
you.
good point. Before you go on, Colin, the sky replacement or existing Adobe technologies, right? So we've got sky replacement, content aware, this and that. Are all those kind of obviated and obsoleted by this new generative AI tool, or knowing Adobe, I know how it is when you take tools away that you've given people, they're very hesitant to, okay, take this tool away because the villagers will come out with pitchforks and torches, right? So,
Well,
so
this
do
is
they?
true.
But then you
There's
run the
definitely
risk of
people.
bloating the app, though, right? Now you have a bloated app with all these features in there when this clearly is a feature that is probably better. I don't know. What do you
Well,
think?
that's a great point you bring up, and I'm sure the pitchforks are definitely coming up. Uh, but no, it's not. We still need the other tools because we still need to, sometimes retouch these. And I was going to show something. Let me show you something
Yeah.
here just to illustrate what we're talking about here. Let me create, and I'll explain this in a second. Let me create a castle, and we're going to generate a castle here. And it'll probably do a good job because I've actually done this before a couple of times, and the castles were good. Although my selection is not usually this big, so it might be strange with such a large selection. But let's see where we go.
But it's
Okay,
fun.
that's not a great castle, but there we go. That one is. That's pretty
Wow.
cool. Okay, so or there's a third option. Looks like some ruins. I mean, the scale's a little big because normally I make a smaller selection for these things. Okay, so this is where you're like, oh, content aware fill is obsolete. Well, this creates it on a layer, right?
Yeah.
So if we hide the other layers, it's creating inside a box. It's not creating a transparent mask. So that means if I want to move the castle over here, how am I going to blend that in?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, I have to now use maybe content aware move, or now I use content aware fill. I use different things to move it. I can generate a new castle here. So here's the thing: I need to choose generate, and this will generate a new castle, and it'll make it fit in here. So watch this. This will fit perfectly,
And all
but
you
with
did
one
was
caveat.
move that original castle on its layer, and
Yeah,
then click generate again,
yeah.
and
And now
now
look at
we.
this. Boom.
Oh my God! Look at that.
Now we've got these new castles. But here's the thing: it's not the same castle. This was the
No.
castle before, right? So when you create a new variation, it stays inside here. But you know what? These ones are generated for the particular selection and the environment, the lighting, the space it is generating brand new ones. So if you move it, you are not going to get the same castle. You're going to get a different castle, right? So does that
Yeah.
sort of make sense?
It
So
does.
you're
Yeah.
so we still need the tools. And people are like, well, I guess let me show you. Before I do, let me just show you how crazy this thing is. Let me grab this lasso tool and just to show you how nuts this thing is. Let's do a lake, just a lake. You could give it, dark lake, shiny lake, reflective lake, whatever. But we'll just do a basic lake, and I just want to show you how crazy this thing is. And by the way, there's no way it cut and pasted that out of another photo. That castle,
Right. Yeah. It's searching a
just look
database of trillions of images to
at
find the
that,
perfect
look at
lake.
that
Right.
lake,
Look at that.
right? And
That
then
looks
look at the other one,
completely convincing. That looks
right
completely
there,
convincing. Yeah. Reflections and
completely.
everything.
Even the reflections, exactly. So it's pretty amazing.
Wow. Which and that's that. Yeah, that is amazing. And one of the things that you brought up, the fact like with the castle, when you regenerate that castle, it's going to just keep creating different iterations of the castle, not the exact same castle. Is there a way to force it into creating the same thing? For example, if you wanted to do like you're doing an episodic short story or something, you have characters that you need to place in different positions or do different things with, but they still need to look the same throughout the series of works that you're putting together. Is that outside of the scope of this version of generative AI, do you think?
You know what? Let's rehire those artists we just fired.
There you go. See? That's the
Yeah,
deal, right? Yeah.
there's so many cases where humans are still needed. I made a video yesterday, and I put it on. Well, actually, the day before yesterday, I put it on YouTube. It's over 60,000 views already, and hundreds of comments. And one of the comments, and I didn't say that to say, oh, I got this video, it's got lots of views. I said that to say that we've got a good sample of comments and thoughts and reactions, and a lot of the comments I was getting were, a lot of them are very positive, but then was someone like, well, this is the end of photography. And it's like, well, you know what? I can generate a dog in here, but I can't generate your dog, right? So
Yeah.
photography, you're still going to need, people say, oh, it's the end of fashion models. No, because that designer created those clothes and I want those exact clothes in those certain positions and stuff like that. So it can't do that. People, you're taking, events, the events are going to be, you can't generate an event. You're going to be like, oh, where's Frederick? Frederick was on the front row. I don't see him in the AI generated,
Right. That's right.
so,
Yeah.
so there's things, for real people, things like events, real estate photography, for example, you're taking pictures of that particular house or that particular hotel or that property. There's events, there's family shots, there's reunions, there's weddings, there's sporting events, there's motor racing, there's so many things. You go on vacation, you're taking that photograph, not because you want to create this, calendar. You're creating it because you want to have a memory. And so you're looking at that photograph and like, here, I created this beautiful thing, but no one has a memory of being by this beautiful lake in Hawaii with the castle,
Yeah. Right.
because it didn't exist. So it's not replacing photography. It's creating almost like a new genre of art. It's something new that's going to live alongside photography and with photography. So you're going to be taking photographs and compositing them in there. So say, for example, I love to shoot cosplay is one of the things I enjoy, and we do these cosplay shoots. And then I'm like, okay, I've got all these, shots of, my models dressed up as whatever characters. And now I've got to make backgrounds. And honestly, I'm focused on the models, the lighting, the hair, the makeup, the body paint, whatever it is. That's what I'm focused on. And now I've got to create backgrounds. I'm not in the mood for creating matte paintings.
Yeah.
I'm focusing on this. So now I can generate environments that I can put in the background and I can composite in with my models. So,
Yeah.
and I think as we start to use it more, we're going to see how it's a tool that's going to be used alongside the things we have.
Yeah, no, I agree. Once we get through this fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and all that era, then the reality starts to set in that this is just another way to do cool things. Yeah, in the TWIP community. Yeah, yeah, go for it. No, yeah, I'll just say this real quick, and I'll switch over to your screen.
Yeah.
In the TWIP community, a lot of the members in there, some of the knee jerk reaction are those, the folks that are afraid of it, or is this the end of photography? Or I spent my entire life learning how to do this thing, and now anybody can do it with a couple of clicks. Does that cheapen it? Did I waste my life, learning how to do this now that it's easier? But that goes for everything. That's called being human, right? Like blacksmiths, like things evolve and new industries show up and all that. Not to be flippant about it, but that's just the way that things have historically evolved over time. New technologies occur because of certain circumstances or certain needs. A new technology shows up that's disruptive for other industries, and those other industries either go away or evolve and rinse and repeat and keep going, right? And that's where we are. So
yeah. Well, I mean, it's like we're not in a stone age anymore, and and people say, "Oh, there's no stone workers anymore." It's like, well, usually the last thing you buy is made of stone.
Exactly. Exactly. What do we have here? I saw this in your email. Yeah, in the video you did. This is cool.
Okay, so this is like one of the first things I was playing with, and it's just really quite amazing here. Let me show you, because one of the things, because we talk about public perception. What's happened is Photoshop has just basically, now it's capable of doing what all our non-Photoshop friends always thought it could do. Right?
Yeah.
Because they would
Right.
say, "Oh, here's a photo. You can change the clothes easily." I mean, are you kidding me? You know how hard it would have? I wouldn't even attempt it back in the day, right? So let's change this to some jeans, and we're going to hit generate. And sometimes, like I say, let's see how the results. Here I am making excuses for it already before it's even created it. But sometimes certain things, it's not perfect yet, but it's pretty amazing. Check this out. Look at that. You know, you
That's
know, right?
just crazy. Look at that.
That's crazy, right? So why don't we do something here? Let me just,
And the folks that
you
may
know,
not have seen that, he's changing her pants and her belt, all of that.
now I'm going to go even further. I'm going to change your jacket. Could you imagine if I came up to you last week? That's how soon it was. If someone
Right.
came to me and said last week, change this to a plaid shirt, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. I'd be like,
Yeah.
I'll do it, but it's going to cost you at least $1,000 because
Right. At
it's going to take
least.
a long time, right? And I don't know if this will turn out any good, but let's have a look. Let's change this to a plaid shirt and hit generate. And sometimes it gets a little. We can get some interesting results on some of these. I know this particular image because I've done it a couple of times now. But look at that.
That's nuts. And that looks great.
It looks pretty realistic, right? Now let's go even further. Here's an interesting thing. So I can take the mask. It creates a mask here. So I'm going to just use this mask that we've already got. And watch this. I'm going to go in here and just add this. And one of the things I just did on my own, just like, oh, I wonder if this will do it, was what if I ask it to generate a tank top? Now, she's had long sleeves in this entire, the photo. So she didn't
So it's
have
going to create
arms.
arms and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, well, let's see. And usually when I do this, by the way, it changes the hair, just so you know.
Oh, interesting. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Let's see.
But it may or may not.
This is like a game.
It is.
Okay, we're waiting.
And we're almost there. Okay, that's not quite what we were looking for. Okay, so we got some jackets in here. Look at this. That's pretty crazy,
What?
right? Let me just hit generate again. Because we just want a tank top. We don't want her to have a cardigan on as well, which is amazing, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's I could see somebody wearing that. Yeah.
Right? There. Okay, so this is not, for some reason, it doesn't want to give us just a tank top by itself. But look at this. This is pretty,
Yeah.
look at that. That's pretty realistic, right? I mean, that's not, but, you know. But anyway, so look at the kind of things it's doing. It's pretty
Yeah, and
amazing.
it created all those pixels from nothing, right? Well, not from nothing, from an uncountable number of hours of learning and digesting
Yeah.
data of how to create clothes, right?
Yeah. So it's looked at millions of photos of clothes, and and it's like, okay, this is sometimes, like I say, sometimes it gets weird, you know.
Yeah. Well, look, it's coming up with new fashion styles. The
Right?
the sleeves look.
Yeah, there we go. This is the new look. The breathable armpits.
Yeah, there you go. Whatever it takes.
But but see, like sometimes it like might change your hair or something like that. But then let's. Here's what's kind of crazy. I mean, it's a little weird. It's just not bad though. It's actually going quite good. So here's the thing. So if I grab the hair and I tell it to make it curly hair, and we'll see where we go from here. Yeah, there's almost there. It's pretty computationally heavy.
Yeah. No, this is good. I mean, this is real time, right? This is
Yeah.
how you will, folks that are watching this is how you'll experience that.
Look at that. Look at that
Oh
curly hair.
wow, look at that.
I mean, that first one is pretty convincing.
That is just nuts. That's
And
nuts.
then we
Yeah, you
complain
would
that,
never
oh no,
know.
it's taking 20 seconds to do something that would have taken me 20 hours, and I'm complaining.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah. First world problems. Right.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Wow. Wow. That's so okay. So then the other piece of this that I've seen, I was playing with this last night. I had no idea that this was possible, but last night,
Yeah. Let's
last night I
generate
was
something again.
yeah, let's generate something because I was deleting stuff. So like leaving the field open and then,
Okay.
just saying, okay, take this stuff out of there. And it was amazing because it recreates what's behind the subject
Oh,
versus just, yeah, it's magic.
yeah. I've never tried to get rid of, on this particular image, I haven't tried to get rid of our women, but let's see what happens.
Oh, this will be interesting. So in order for this to be accurate, it's going to have to recreate that wall and the chair and all that other stuff
Yeah.
below
I have
there.
no idea. I have no idea if it's going to be able to do this or not, but
I don't
let's give
know.
it
We're doing it live. We're doing it live.
but, if it fails, it's fine. I mean, you know, that's pretty good.
That's not bad. I mean, there's some.
There we
What?
go.
Oh, it's like let's replace her with some flowers. Yeah,
Well, sometimes
look at
it
that.
does that. I notice a lot of the time it will replace them with something else. So we're missing a little bit of the chair, but you get stuff like this. You can just, you could actually just, content aware fill it. You don't even have to.
Right.
I'm not on the smart edge. Well, just use a generative fill, but the other tools inside of Photoshop can still come into play here. But let's do something fun when we're done with this. I'll create something else. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's pretty amazing. So why don't
That
we
is.
why don't we put a dog on the table?
That's not going to work.
The dog's not going to work.
It probably will. I'm just saying
Well,
it
I didn't
can't
think it was
work.
going to do as good a job of getting rid of the woman right there. That was crazy.
Yeah, it's fantastic at deleting stuff and rebuilding the background. That blew me away. Like that.
Yeah, and even like
Look at that. Look at that.
Look at that
Look at
dog.
that. It looks realistic and convincing, right? If you just looked at this
Notice it's
photo,
also sitting on the look at that. Let's put a cat over here. And it even blends it into the environment. That's what amazes me. Let's put a cat on here.
yeah,
Now we
with the
can do the whole
shadows
Dr.
and
Voodoo
everything.
thing.
Yeah, there you go. And then you have to add a bird somewhere in there too.
Right. So I mean, it does kind of. It's just playing. Look at that. Look at that.
Wow,
Oh, that one.
that's nuts.
Look at that. It's built right in.
Yeah.
You know.
What a concepting tool too, right? So even
Oh,
if you're not
yeah.
creating the final work with this, somebody could create basically a really good looking sketch or storyboard of what they want the shot to look like, right?
Oh yeah, and that's one of the interesting things that people are doing right now. Not with this yet because it just came out, but like Midjourney, a lot of photographers are now using it for concepts. And
Yeah.
I also know concept artists that are using it to help generate ideas, just to brainstorm. But a lot of photographers are using it now. They're just kind of punching in what they want to do for their photography, and then using that to set up their lighting and kind of help them set up the scene.
Yeah. Yeah. Why not?
You know? I mean, look at this. We
Absolutely.
got a you know right here.
See, Colin,
Let me
with,
show you
with great power, comes great responsibility.
tell you something though, that this whether it's going to work or not. If this works, it's going to really blow everyone's minds. Let's put a mirror in here. Not only does it
And
have to mirror this, everything that's here, it also has to imagine what's behind us on the street, right? Because this
yeah,
looks like Paris or something, maybe.
if it gets this is ridiculous.
Okay, that's not quite what I
Okay.
was expecting. All right,
Yeah,
that's cheating. That's cheating.
that is
You know what?
cheating.
That's like paying someone to like put in a swimming pool and then they put in like a bathtub.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's change this. Let's change this. Let's go. Let's go big or go home. Let's just.
But
go,
I mean, of note, it did get the perspective right. So,
oh yeah. I mean, this is probably going to ruin everything when I do this. But that's the nice thing about it being on layers. Actually, I got an idea. If this doesn't work, I know how we can do what we need to do. All right, so it's
I didn't
clever.
mess with anything. Yeah,
That's clever.
those are better.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's do this. I'm going to type in puddle. Because I do want to show you how well it does reflections, because it actually does reflections really well.
Wow.
So we got to get some reflections in here.
This is crazy. Yeah,
right?
For the folks that are listening to this audio, we apologize for the we're staring at the screen with our mouths open, at the results that Photoshop is giving us. So you got to go back and watch this video on YouTube or on the site, because you will be blown away.
Yeah, I mean, the dog is a corgi. It's like you can actually tell it's a breed of dog.
Uh-huh.
And that chicken looks like all the ones that are in Kauai. Have you ever been to Kauai? There's a
yes, they're everywhere.
A lot of chickens everywhere. Look at this. See the reflection? See the dog in the reflection there?
Oh yeah, look at that.
See his paw? Oh, look in there. See? So it's actually reflecting the environment. Well, one place. Let me see what do we do here. Let's just do I don't know if this is going to be weird if I can even make this work. Actually, you know what? Let me just get a more appropriate photo.
There you go.
To show you something here. Let's do this one. Okay, so check this out. I'm just going to grab all of this. So it's, I should have removed the person first, but I just want to show you reflective. Oh no, it's just wet cement. I can spell cement. Oh, hang on. That was good. Good skills there, Colin. See, if I can do this, anyone can. Okay, so check this out. So normally I would get rid of the person first and some of the cars, because we'll probably get some weird results where we're cutting through the middle of these. Mm-hmm. But I want you to see the reflections, because it's really quite impressive. Yeah, look at that.
Oh my goodness. Look at that. Wow. Yeah, the reflections of the cars, those green pylons in the center, the buildings in the distance are adequately blurred, and it's the same. Yeah. Wow.
Right? And it just created new legs and half the cars
put her in,
right there.
Yeah, because she's standing in water. She needs boots on, right? So
I mean, that's pretty crazy, right? I knew that.
Oh, that's nuts. That opens up so many possibilities, man. I mean, like, just, once you understand the sort of the way or the power that this tool gives you, my mind starts thinking in different directions. Like, I want to go back into my old library and like, oh, remember that shot that I hated because of this thing that was in there? I could take that out. Or this shot, wouldn't it be great if there was a lake,
Right.
Let me put a lake on the White House lawn. Done. Look at that. I can do it. Yeah, that's
easily,
crazy. Yeah. Wow. So how do you feel about, I mean, as an educator, I feel like people that we entrust, like you, to teach us about Photoshop and be on the bleeding edge of all this. I feel like this is just somebody just threw a pile of raw meat into the cage for you guys, and it's like, okay, we're good for another decade of content creation and teaching people how to make this new tool sing, right? You feel like that? Or
I mean, yes and no. It does definitely open up a new, there's a lot of things that people are going to have to learn that are going to be new, but not just that, it's going to be changing very quickly, right? Because, everything's changed, but it's not going to stop. Everything's just going to keep changing. There's always going to be new things,
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, this is crazy. Now I want to go play with it more that you showed me. Yeah, I was getting some crazy results. I think I was not using the tool correctly. But yeah, I think I was thinking more when I was playing with it, and I only played with it like for an hour or so. But I was thinking more from a content aware fill perspective, less from a this is going to create something brand new. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and it's good to know. I mean, hopefully they won't take content aware fill or the sky replacement tools or any of that away, so that now we just have all these awesome tools, like you said, to sort of stack on each other as the situation demands it. So
Well,
yeah,
I think
good stuff.
content aware fill, though. I don't know if you've seen it. Did they put it in here? The remove tool. So content aware fill is kind of dead now, because they have a new remove tool. Let me show you. I'll just create a layer on top. So this is the new remove tool, which is not part of this. This is in the actual regular shipping Photoshop right now. So this tool here actually exists right now in your Photoshop. So also using AI. So I just figured I'll throw this in here.
And this is this using Sensei to do its thing?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's not going to generate anything. All it's doing is it's literally, it's filling. And it's taking a little while here. But look, so we can get rid of things very,
Oh
very
yeah.
easily. So I'm going to say, look at that.
Wow.
So, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to need, I don't know, like if content aware fill has a future right now, because look at that.
Yeah, because one of the main reasons I was using content aware fill was for, like you were doing before, extending scenes, but it would, like a scene of a model on a seamless paper backdrop, and and it was a 6-foot backdrop, so you've got the wall showing behind her or whatever sides, so extending that wall out a little bit to make it look more convincing. That's easy, for the most part for Photoshop to do. But now you could do that same thing, but your model's in a busy scene on a street somewhere and you want to make it wider, you can make it wider and no one will ever know. So
Yeah.
That's nuts. All right, man. Anything else you want to show before we wrap this up?
Let me think about this just for 1 second. Let me see if
Sure.
there's anything that let me see if I just want to see if there's anything I did differently that I haven't really shown. Just thinking. No, you know what? I've pretty much, obviously there's lots of millions and millions of examples and different things we could do. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I've pretty much shown you the high level of, these are the features and this is what it's capable of.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's very, you know what? Yeah, there was one other thing. That's what I wanted to show. Yeah, let me show you this really quick. Because you were talking about depth of field and a blurry background before, right?
Yeah.
So this is the last thing I'll show you. But this is, I was experimenting with this and it kind of blew my mind, right? I didn't want to select the subject. By the way, this toolbar is new too. That's in our regular Photoshop as well. They just added that context sensitive toolbar. But check this out. I'm going to create a fox, right? So this is in the distance. It should be blurry. And we'll see how good it does.
What did you
look at that.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So let me show you something interesting. So here's something, because this goes into a layer, a generative layer, and that prompt goes with the layer. So I'm going to hit the Alt or the Option key, and I'm going to drag out. And I know this is a fox because that prompt's still there, and I'm just going to hit Generate again. But now we're in the foreground where it should be sharp, right?
It should be.
Yeah,
if it is.
There it is.
Oh my God. There's so much math happening here. That's crazy.
Look at that. What? We got this incredible art and you bring it to math?
Well, yeah, that's the nerd. That's the nerd in my brain. Because I'm thinking, here's what I'm thinking, Colin. I'm thinking, okay, so this software has to look at the depth map for this shot. First, it has to recreate it, look at the depth of field of what's in focus, what's not in focus, and create a depth map. Then it needs to generate from its machine learning or whatever the thing that you asked for and place it convincingly along the z-axis in that depth map, and then composite it in there correctly, and then put it on a layer for you just in case. Right?
Yeah,
That's math. That's straight math.
And check this out. And It's even got her hair in there, like that, that flyaway hair. Look at
Yeah.
this, and the other variations of it.
Yes, it does.
It's no, it's ridiculous. Like
Wow.
it's
I mean, this is like, I mean, it sounds like a hyperbole to say this is game changing, but like I think about some of the photographers that I've interviewed and spoken with over the years and the different kinds of work that they're doing, whether it be pet photography or infant or child or family or whatever, imagine the possibilities now, right? So
yeah.
now, a studio shot of a baby with a frog next to her, I don't know where that came from, but I don't know.
Well, the thing that excites me is, once we get through once we've generated our maybe 10 billionth cat, because
Yeah,
it's probably
yeah,
going to be the most generated thing,
that's right.
is I'm really excited what the next generation, and when I say the next generation, that could be us reinventing ourselves. That's also the next generation of
Yeah,
artists are going to do with this. Because right now it's like, oh, everyone can do this. Yeah, everyone can do this, but not everyone can do what a great artist can do. So there's
that's right.
stuff that is just waiting to be created that's never been possible before, and some great artists are going to create some incredible work.
Wow, I love it. Colin Smith, thank you for doing this, man. My mind is blown. People want to check out the stuff that you're working on, follow you, buy courses from you, hear you speak. What's the best way to connect with Colin Smith?
All my stuff kind of comes together at photoshopcafe.com.
Okay.
That's my website, and then everything else just is kind of attached to that. So that's kind of like the heart of where everything is. Yeah.
All right. PhotoshopCafe.com. Cool, man. We'll leave it right there. Thank you for doing this last minute on a Friday afternoon, no less.
On a long weekend.
Before a long weekend. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So,
All right,
yeah.
thanks for having me.
I owe you one. So, whenever you need me, call me. I'm there. So,
Got it. All right.
all right, man. Take care. This is Twip.